everyone, my name is Hannah O'Looney and I am currently serving as your 44th student member of the Board of Education. Before we hear from our two candidates today, I wanted to sincerely thank you for allowing me to serve you this past year. Through being the first Smob to visit all 65 middle and high schools during the course of their term, my record-high student advisory council with over 800 students, over 3 times the size of the previous record, DMs and live streams on social media, and monthly email newsletters and videos, I hope you have felt connected to the work of the Board of Education and felt that your voice was heard in our decision-making process. Whether shouted into a microphone during a Q&A in a school auditorium or whispered to me in a locker room, your ideas and concerns have fueled the progress I've fought for this year. A longtime passion of mine, I'm proud to have kick-started the process to install free menstrual product dispensers in our schools, piloting this program in 4 schools this year and expanding so that all 209 schools have at least 2 menstrual product dispensers by the start of next school year and in all bathrooms by 2025. As I continue to hear concerns about inaccessible counseling services, I'm also proud to have championed a $1.6 million budget amendment for online telehealth counseling services so that any student can access professional therapy during school at any time. Seeing the disparities in course offerings and extracurriculars across zip codes, I'm also proud to have fought for a $1.2 million amendment correcting differences in unequal course and club offerings through virtual solutions. Both of these amendments passed successfully. As our generation continues to lead the fight against climate change, I'm proud to have secured a first-ever tangible goal for MCPS to play our role in saving our planet, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035 compared to 2005 emission levels, in addition to enhancing climate change education and purchasing sustainable materials. I've also led the process of completely redesigning our school system's community engagement policy, turning a 4-page document into a 16-page one that creates unprecedented requirements for ensuring your voice is heard before our school system makes decisions. Finally, I'm excited to share steps to diversify MCPS's staff through strategic recruitment at historically Black colleges, Hispanic and Asian American Pacific Islander serving institutions, as well as supporting our own students to pursue education through college tuition reimbursement programs. While this job has not been easy, it has been the privilege and honor of a lifetime. As I wrap up the final months of my term, I continue to be inspired by you, our students, whose resilience, passion, and strength have made me optimistic about the future of our county. I thank you again for this opportunity to serve and ask that you think critically about who your next best Smob will be. Now, let's meet the candidates for the 45th student member of the Board of Education. Today, you will have a moment to learn about each of our 2 candidates who are seeking your vote to serve as the 45th student member of the Board of Education. The 2 candidates elected at the February 16th, 2022 Smob Nominating Convention are Mr. Baba Cisse and Mr. Arvind Kim. This program will help you be best prepared to vote in the Smob election on April 20th, 2022. Let's begin. Mr. Ibrahima Cisse, best known as Baba, is a grade 11 student at Albert Einstein High School. Baba has had a burning passion in student advocacy since middle school. He is currently his class SGA's vice president, a Down County cluster liaison for the Smob Advisory Council, and captain of his cross-country and track and field team. Baba's goal is to communicate with all of the students to make reasonable changes based on the students' voices, and to spread awareness to students about student advocacy. He has been exposed to problems in the county, where he stepped up to advocate on issues ranging from the MCPS 2.5-year COVID recovery plan, equity for the LGBTQ+ community, women's equity in sports, to the opportunity gap and curriculum reforms. Our second candidate is Mr. Arvind Kim, who is an 11th grade student at Walt Whitman High School. Over the past 5 years, Arvin has served as vice president of the countywide Middle School Student Government Association and the treasurer and chief of staff of the Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association, advocating for students on issues including increased funding, mental health days, and safer schools at the national, state, and local levels. Arvin has worked closely with Smobs in the past, serving as a director on the Smob Advisory Cabinet. He is a founding member of MoCo Pride Youth, a certified workshop presenter for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, and the Vice President of the Asian American Progressive Student Union. He has served as a student representative in a number of MCPS policy work groups around topics including the operating budget and student rights, and served on a work group helping to write the nation's first LGBTQ+ studies curriculum here in MCPS. Welcome to both candidates. Today we have a series of questions to ask and learn more about each of the candidates and their vision for their work in this position. I'll ask each candidate to keep their responses to 45 seconds so that we have time to discuss multiple issues. Baba, we'll begin with you and alternate who gets answers first as we go. The first question is, for years, students have faced differences in educational opportunities offered to them based on their school, socioeconomic status, race, or other factors. What solutions do you propose to address the growing opportunity gap?
Being a lifelong DCC student, I understand the disparities we have faced. And I believe that one of the many steps to further our lessening the opportunity gap is revisiting the boundary analysis. This time, educating more students, teachers, and stakeholders about the boundary analysis and how it affects our students directly. And as well as offering more SAT prep, more diverse opportunities such as college and career readiness and financial literacy to all of the students, especially in the DCC and NEC areas.
Thank you, Baba. I'll give the same question to you, Arvin.
Our county needs to do more to support students and level the playing field for everyone, because where you come from or what you look like should not determine the quality of your education or the opportunities you have access to. That's why we need to implement universal access to courses, using MCPS's virtual academy to allow students to take any course, regardless of if their school offers it or not, online, while attending the rest of their day in person. We need to implement tutoring services and free SAT and ACT prep in every high school, because equal access to education should be the priority of our county. That's why we need to equitably distribute funding for renovations to schools that need it most, because we cannot learn while our school buildings are falling apart. We need to take steps to make sure that our county works for all 160,000 students within it, regardless of what language you speak, where you come from, or what school you go to.
Thank you so much to both candidates. Our second question is, many students in our county suffer from depression, anxiety, and related mental health issues, and the status of mental health in our community has only worsened following the COVID-19 pandemic. How can the system better support student mental health? Arvin, we'll start with you.
Now more than ever, our county needs to work to support students in these trying times. In just this past year, we faced a return to our classrooms, a resurgence of gun violence in schools, and the struggles that come with in-person learning. We need to make sure students are supported by our county. We need to hire more school psychologists in every MCPS high school and implement a weekly mental health day, with no tests or homework assigned and shorter periods to allow time for a free period just for students. We need to incorporate mental health education into our comprehensive health curriculum to make sure students have the tools they need to be successful in the school building and be supported in their mental health. Moving forward, our county should always prioritize student wellness.
Thank you, Arvin. Baba, same question.
I want to create and develop a mental health screening tool, which would allow counselors to privately and effectively communicate with students, as well as developing one-on-one counselor training, student-to-counselor relationships. We need all students to be able to effectively communicate with counselors and have that one-on-one relationship, as well as working towards having wellness periods during our school day. A period where you're able to relax, talk to your friends, and seek tutoring help if you need it, as well as seek help if you want to talk to your counselor. And as well as improving and funding and allocating more budget money to wellness centers in our schools, as well as raising awareness that they're available at all schools.
Thank you, Baba. Our next question. How would you engage students, especially historically underrepresented groups, in discussions and decisions about our school system? Baba, I'll turn it back to you.
My inter-school communication plan is a plan that is developed to allow all student leaders and organization heads on a shared space. This would look like a Slack or Discord server where all student leaders are at one place, sharing ideas, creating inter-school events, and creating a sense of familiarity, allowing students to be able to be present and knowing how to get into organizations that represent them, knowing how to get into student advocacy, and learn how to represent themselves.
Thank you, Baba. Arvin?
In a county as large and diverse as ours, we need to make sure that every voice is being heard. As your Smob, I will work to make sure all students are being represented, especially those from underserved parts of our county, From East County to West County, from the NEC to the DCC, from high schools to middle schools, your voices deserve to be heard. I plan on creating a Smob advisory cabinet with members from every single middle school and high school to assist me in my journey to represent the student voice. I plan to work with your SGAs, MSPs, PTAs, and school clubs and organizations to make sure that you're being represented in the decisions our county makes. I plan to be accessible across the county, making sure that our forums, town halls, and public hearings are held in other places across the county instead of just Rockville, so everyone in our county has a chance to have their voice heard.
Lots of great answers from both candidates. Amidst a growing number of serious incidents this school year, including an incident of gun violence at Magruder High School, school safety has become a growing concern for our community. How do you plan to address school safety, and what is the role of police in your vision? Arvin, I'll turn it to you.
As we face unbridled gun violence in our schools, we need to refuse to learn in fear and reject turning our schools into prisons. Because when 80% of students arrested in our own county are Black and brown, and 25% of students arrested in our county are neurodivergent or disabled, it's clear that something is wrong, that prejudice runs rampant, and that the system is broken. We need to make change. We need to invest in solutions we know will work. Solutions like mental health support for students and security infrastructure, like locks on our doors and cameras in our hallways. Whatever solution we choose, we need to make sure that we're keeping students safe, not criminalizing them.
Thank you, Arvin. Baba?
I'm strongly against having police officers inside of our school buildings. I believe that an officer presence around our community is crucial to keeping students and our community safe. We must instead address school violence issues from the root, looking into things about mental health services, as well as more restorative justice programs, teaching students and allowing students to learn from their mistakes instead of just giving them a detention, but offering them solutions and ways to better help themselves after.
Thank you both for those responses on a question I know many students are worried about right now. Next is, in what ways do you believe COVID-19 has changed the way students learn, and how will you address any challenges that have arisen as a result of the pandemic? Baba, I'll turn it back to you.
Being in a recent pandemic, we've been away from the traditional classroom, and many students have suffered from not being able to communicate with friends and not being able to learn in the same way. And it has affected even our extracurriculars, ranging from the arts all the way to our sports systems. And so we are able to bounce back, and we have seen MCPS able to bounce back with more at-home COVID-19 tests and more students participating in the Say Yes to the Test program, as well as giving more students the ability to be able to participate in extracurriculars. I feel MCPS has been able to take the right measures in making masks optionals into fighting for a brand new way of going back to a sense of normalcy.
Thank you, Baba. Arvin?
We cannot expect students to learn in the same way they did before the pandemic. We want to make sure that in our new curriculum, we're recovering from the losses of learning that we've seen over the past 2 years, reviewing old content as we move forward with new ones. As we move forward, we have to recognize that the pandemic completely changed the way we learn, and at the same time has presented us with opportunities to make our education more equitable and effective. We can reflect upon the asynchronous day of the virtual year to make sure students have mental health support throughout their school year. We can look at the virtual academy and virtual options for education to allow students to take a mix of both virtual and in-person classes. We can move forward from this pandemic stronger than ever.
Thank you, Arvin and Baba. Even doing this program in person is something that we weren't able to do last year. In light of the important national conversations surrounding racial justice after the murder of George Floyd, the Board of Education launched an anti-racist system audit that will continue throughout your term. How will you use the results of this audit and get the input you get from your peers to address racial inequities throughout our school system? Arvin, I'll turn it back to you.
Education should be the great equalizer. That's why it's so disheartening to see students of color continuing to be unserved as we move forward in our county. The anti-racism audit is a great first step, but as we transition into a school year that is more equitable for all students, we need to make sure we're taking tangible steps towards real solutions to build a more equitable school system. We need to diversify our staff so that our teachers reflect the diversity that we see in the student body. We want to create more inclusive curriculum, both in the compulsory social studies and English curriculum, and in creating new classes that students can take. Looking at these past few years, the implementation of the LGBTQ+ studies course and things like the African American studies course are great first steps. Continuing this trend, we can allow students to have a say in what the future looks like for racial equity in our county.
Thanks, Arvin. Baba?
Firstly, I'll allow all students to know what the anti-racism audit is, how they can get involved in the anti-racism audit, and how they can further use their voice to share their experiences. I believe all students should have a say on when it comes to topics such as racism. I want to foster and make sure that we talk about racism in our school communities and in our sports community as well, having student athletes cooperate with each other and working to each other about racism, and as well as diversifying our curriculum. MCPS is one of the most diverse counties out there, and our curriculum should reflect that. Hiring teachers and educators from a wide range of backgrounds is a great first step.
Thank you both so much for those sentiments, especially as we know our students just recently took a survey surrounding the anti-racist system audit. Next, what do you see as your role as Smob, and how will you innovate the position? How will you be different from past Smobs? Baba?
I see my role as Smob is as being as inclusive as possible. I want all students to know exactly what a Smob is and how they can get involved in Smob. I've heard things like the RM to Smob pipeline, and I want these things to end. I want all students to know that you can get involved in student advocacy. You can get involved in advocacy in general. All you need is a goal and the determination to stick to make your vision a success. I want all students to know that they can reach me through town halls, having town halls in many different areas of the county to ensure that we hear voices from all around the county, especially for our middle school and high school students respectfully.
Thank you so much, Baba. Arvin?
The primary role of the Smob is to represent the 160,000 students of our county. This year, I want to take steps to connect with you like never before. I'm going to commit myself to going live on Instagram and TikTok to hear directly from you all. I'll always be an email, a DM, or a text message away. I want to build a Smob advisory cabinet, so I'm making sure that I'm elevating your voices, not only mine, to make sure that as we move forward, make decisions, and push policy, we're reflecting the interests of all students in our diverse, large, and beautiful county.
Thank you so much. As a senior in the school system, I've seen the role of the Smob develop a lot throughout the past 13 years, so really appreciate those answers. Regionally and globally, climate change continues to be a growing issue. What reasonable solutions do you propose the school system enact to help address this regional and global issue? Arvin, we'll start with you.
It's critical that we work not only to protect our planet, but the future for our generation. We need to take steps, like transitioning MCPS to rely completely on renewable energy, so that all our facilities, schools, and buses rely on renewable, electric, and more clean energy. We need to take steps to ensure that our carbon footprint as a school system is being reduced. We want to reduce the amount of single-use plastics and paper that we see being disposed of in our school system and incorporate education around climate change directly into our compulsory curriculums. Moving forward, our school system should be greener than ever.
Thank you, Arvin. Baba?
One of the main things I see is encouraging more environmental clubs, especially at middle school and high school levels, and allowing for more programs like composting. I know the majority of the school lunches that MCPS has get thrown away and could easily be composted to go towards bettering our environment. Another thing we can do is working towards being and having one of the first zero-emission free schools in MCPS. And what this looks like, it requires us talking about climate change, talking about global climate issues in our classrooms and in our communities, and working together to ensure that we keep hold our own students responsible for picking up trash we see in the hallways and encouraging all of us to work towards a greener school.
Thank you both. Sustainability is something I've certainly prioritized in my work on the Policy Management Committee, so I'm excited to see you both continue to work on that. Possibly the biggest responsibility the Smob has each year is to help craft the operating budget. What initiatives would you like to see funded in the budget, and what would you be willing to cut to keep it balanced? Baba, we'll start with you.
I believe we need to have more systems in place where students from poorly funded areas to get more resources, like SAT prep, college and career readiness prep. I want to make sure that we ensure there are more instances where students are able to have their voices heard and represented on the board table. I'm willing to work with students to make sure that we have a wide range of issues such as ADA compliance, gender-neutral bathrooms, and making sure that school infrastructure is up to date. But that requires students to work closely with me and working with students to make sure that on the operating budget, sitting on the committee, the students are as well heard here and are sustained to have their voices inputted.
Thank you so much, Baba. Arvin?
Our biggest priority as a school system should always be to support students. That's why as we move forward with the new budget, we want to make sure we're allocating an appropriate amount of money to mental health, so we can hire more psychologists. MCPS only has 101 psychologists across 160,000 students and just over 200 schools. We want to make sure that we're meeting the ratio of 500 students per psychologist as per the National Association of School Psychologists. We can also invest in free tutoring services and more lunches and breakfasts for all of our students to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students to be successful. We have a $3 billion budget. I think we can find room to support students.
Thank you so much. A timely topic of discussion, as at the time of this recording, the board just finished its operating budget process. All right, next question. As Smob, you have a dual responsibility of standing up for your own perspective on contentious issues, while also communicating with the public the final decision of the board, which can often conflict with your own opinion. How do you plan to balance these responsibilities and communicate the board's decisions with students? We'll start with Arvin.
It's my job as the Smob to represent your voices, and I'm going to make sure that your voices are being heard in every decision MCPS makes. On the decision-making side of things, I'm going to require that all MCPS decision-making groups have at least one student representative. That way, students have a say in every part of our education. As we move forward with the decisions we make, I'll make sure to communicate these with your schools, connecting with not only your school administrations, but with your SGAs, your school clubs and organizations, and community members at large. I want to make sure that I'm the most accessible Smob that we've seen to date, and that you have a say in your education and know what's going on in your county.
Thank you, Arvin. Baba?
Time and time again, I've seen is the students' voices that are used to make change. And what this looks like is making sure that all of our students know exactly what goes on at the board table. What this looks like, having town halls, having Instagram lives, and effectively sharing ideas that I have with students and hearing your voices to successfully fight for them. My voice is just one out of the 8 board members on the table, but it's my voice behind the 160,000 plus voices of the students. It's you guys that are really used to make change, and it's you guys who deserve to be firsthand in knowing about issues, knowing how to testify, knowing where to share your voices, and learning how to redirect your voices to make these policy changes.
Thank you both. Communication is definitely something I've tried to innovate during my time on the board, so I'm looking forward to seeing you both continue to innovate that. This is all the time we have for our discussion. We encourage schools to invite the candidates to visit and meet with students before the election on April 20th. Each candidate will now have an opportunity to provide a closing statement. Baba will speak first.
50 years ago, MCPS established the position of the student member of the board to allow students to amplify their voices on the problems they face in the community. Today, we have the opportunity to express that voice and showcase our concerns. Today, we the students from across the county know the problems that we face in our own school system, where nothing is perfect and shall not be perfect. However, we can work to help satisfy the needs of all of our students in MCPS. I'm not satisfied with learning the same outdated stories in our curriculum our schools teach. I'm not satisfied that our quality of education is based on where we live and the demographic that makes up our school community. I'm not satisfied with the county's neglect and inadequate resources when it comes to mental health in our schools. I'm not satisfied with the MCPS approach to police in our buildings. I'm not satisfied with an MCPS today where we fail to address the gaps in achievement, an MCPS where we fail to address the disparities and opportunities provided to our students. I've seen an MCPS student body where we are able to overcome any and all challenges we face. We have had enough time to talk. Now it's the time to take action. The problems we see in our community provide nothing but disappointment and concern for our own safety, our own education. Our needs are unfulfilled. I believe we have the power to work together as students to continue the purpose, fulfill the purpose set forth 50 years ago, as we work to voice students' concerns and make effective change for the future and prosperity of MCPS. I'm going to fight to keep officers out of schools and address school safety from the root. I'm going to fight to prioritize mental health and restorative justice, to guarantee more inclusive lunch options and ensure they remain free, uplifting our collective voices and guaranteeing representation across the county. I'm going to fight to provide universal access to virtual academy courses and diversifying curriculum development. This is the MCPS I'm fighting for. This is the MCPS we deserve. This change does not only start with my voice, but with yours. I am satisfied, for now, speaking with you. I'm satisfied that you're hearing me, and I am satisfied that you're listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Baba. Now let's hear from Arvin.
We stand in a defining moment for our county. In the midst of a global pandemic, gun violence in our schools, rampant disparity, and a mental health crisis that remains unaddressed, the changes we make now and the policies we pass today will shape the future of our education. That's why it's critical to elect someone who has the knowledge and experience to move us forward. For the past 5 years, I've been fighting tirelessly for you as the Vice President, Treasurer, and Chief of Staff of the countywide student government and a director on the Smob Advisory Cabinet. I've been pushing for increased funding, reforming our county's mental health policy, and building safer schools. I've spent the past 3 months visiting your schools, walking your hallways, and hearing from you about the issues we face as students in MCPS. You've taught me that while our schools are unique, we are binded by the irrepressible drive to seek the best for our education. In Montgomery County, we may not all look the same, come from the same place, or speak the same language, but we are one student body. And when we come together, there is nothing we can't achieve. We can create more inclusive curriculum and diversify our staff. We can institute weekly mental health days and hire more school psychologists. We can provide free SAT and ACT prep in every high school. We can close the opportunity gap, because what you look like or where you live should not determine the quality of your education. We can build a school system where your voices are heard, because in a county with 160,000 students and 209 schools, we need to serve every cluster, every school, and every student. That's the MCPS I'm fighting for. One run not by ignorance and apathy, but by unwavering belief and undying passion. But I can't do it alone. Real change has always started with the students. And with 160,000 of us in our county, there is nothing that stands in our way. So join me in our movement to empower, uplift, and fight for the student voice. And vote Arvin for Smob.
Thank you, Baba and Arvin. In closing, please listen carefully to a statement from Divya Vakalanka and Parisi, the Special Elections Administrator.
Hey everybody, my name is Divya Vakalanka, a senior at Northwest High School and one of your Special Elections Administrators this year.
My name is Paris G. I'm a junior at Richard Montgomery High School and the other Special Elections Administrator this year.
We lead what's called the Special Elections Committee, which is a group of students from across Montgomery County charged with organizing and running the entire Smob election. On February 16th, we held our first ever hybrid nomination convention that was attended by nearly 500 student delegates from middle and high schools around the county. The diverse field of 16 candidates was narrowed down to our 2 finalists.
One of our 2 finalists will be elected by students in grades 6 through 12 to serve on Montgomery County's Board of Education as a full voting member. The Montgomery County Smob is only one of 2 Smobs in the entire state of Maryland to have full voting rights, giving us a unique opportunity for student voice. Seniors also have the opportunity to vote and leave their legacy behind within MCPS.
This election has over 80,000 eligible voters, including outgoing seniors like me. It's very important that every student cast their vote in this process and has their voices heard. The Special Elections Committee has developed many resources to learn about these 2 candidates and allow for all students to make an informed vote.
Not only have you seen the candidates speak on this program, but each student will receive voter guides with candidate profiles. These include detailed information on both candidates to include their platform and their answers to a few questions about key issues. These voter guides will be emailed to your MCPS account along with Election Day reminders and a sample of the ballot.
On Election Day, you will open the electronic ballot that identifies each candidate and a summary of their platform and ideas on the voting screen. This year, the election will be held on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. The ballot will open at 7:30 a.m. and close at 3:30 p.m. Thank you all so much for listening, and we can't wait to see you turn out to vote on April 20th.